Okay, this is the 15th lecture in our series of the amazing power of Gematria. I've been looking at some interesting other videos on YouTube which are using Gematria as the basis. I'm going to have something to say about some of these in later lectures. What I do, I use certain systems. I do not use what is called the reverse values. It looks a very interesting system, and somebody has asked me a question on that, and I've seen it used by Zachariah Hubbard. I don't use it because that's not the natural way in which the alphabet is used. We do not say Z, Y, X. And I have a feeling that if we start reversing it, we're going to come up with things which are perhaps of a negative character rather than of the positive character. I have to give some thought to that, and I'm not going to discount it completely. What I do is based on the placement value, because everything stems from that. Even if you want to have a reversed value, you're talking about starting from the normal system, the A, B, C, D, and then you're going to reverse it. So you're actually still stating that your primal system is the usual placement value. Some people call it the simple value. So there's quite a lot of people who are doing Gematria online, and you'll see various different systems, systems which are used in numerology, where you go to J, which is 10, and J becomes 1, you take away the 0, and you start again. J is 1, K is 2, L is 3. That's similar to the normal value if you take off all the zeros from each of the letters. So for example, L will be 30 in the normal value, and you take off the 0 from 30, you get 3. T will be 200, you take off the zeros, you get 2. In Hebrew, we call that Mispa Katan, the small value. And if you were to work out the value of a number, of a word or phrase, and you were to add up the digits, you will get to the small value. If that still gives you a 2-digit number, then you would add those two digits together to give you until you get you keep adding the digits until you get to a single value, and that will be what we call a Mispa Katan HaMuchlat, the total or the absolute small value. And that's used in Kabbalistical teachings as well. These all derive from Kabbalah. I'm against the view that says that since Kabbalah is the root of all these Gematria, that they have been making a play on the world and doing evil things in this world. Kabbalah is not an evil doctrine. It has been used for evil, like any technology. People like Shabbatai Tzvi and Jacob Frank and the disciples were using Kabbalah in a way which was not acceptable amongst the real Kabbalists, which gave a bad name to the Jewish people. So it's very easy to condemn Kabbalah on the fact that there were some devious or incorrect uses of Kabbalah by certain individuals. That is by no means what Kabbalah is, and I suggest that if you are interested in Kabbalah in any extent, that you go and look it up in its original, real, authentic books that are around, like the Pri Etz Chaim, the Talmud Devorah, the Palm Tree of Deborah, and you've got the writings of the Arizal, you've got the Zohar, which has been translated into English by the Kabbalistic Research Center. You've got various other books like the Book of Creation. These are authentic Kabbalistic books, and there's a wealth of Hasidic teachings given by various Hasidic masters. You'll find the Lubavitch Hasidim have a whole set of English-based Kabbalistical teachings which show how the Torah and the whole of the Tanakh, the whole of the Bible, has teachings of Kabbalah hidden there, and it's now in English and it can be read by anybody. So let's get on with this next lecture. This next lecture is on the square, connected again to what we call sacred geometry. We've done the circle, we've done the Star of David, the 6 pointed star, and this one is going to be on the square. I won't touch any more on geometry as such. It will come in a book that I'm writing, which will bring all different aspects of geometry. This is a little bit complex, so we're going to start off easy, and it will go on a little bit more complex, and probably my books that I'm going to write, I'll evolve from this into something perhaps even more complex. But let's start. So the word square. Okay, we have the word square, and we'll start with the placement value, where S is the 19th, this is the 17th, 21st, 1, 18th and 5, and that equals 81. I'm going to go quite fast because this is quite a lot to cover, so bear with me. You can check these up. You've looked at previous lectures, so you should get some idea of this. If I now use the normal value, where S is 100, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J comes to 10, K is 20, L is 30, get to S is 100, T is 200, Q is 80, U is 300, A is 1, 90 and 5, I get 576. Okay, what's important about those numbers is that 81 is 9 squared and 576 is 24 squared. Okay, they're both squared. I haven't used the large or the inner normal values for this. They don't give you square numbers, and I haven't as of yet discovered what they indicate as far as the square, but I'm sure it has meaning. But these two certainly do have meaning. The letter in Hebrew which represents a square, we looked at the circle, and we saw that the letter that in Hebrew that represents a circle is the samach. It's the only letter that's missing in the creation story, in the 7 days of creation, including the Sabbath. The letter samach is missing because the samach, which is a circle, represents instability, and creation was the creation of stability, creation of out from chaos to what we call in Hebrew tikkun, to fixing to stability. So so that is the samach, but in Hebrew the letter for a square is the final mem. The normal mem looks like this. This is as it occurs in the middle of a word or the beginning of a word, but when this comes at the end of the word, it looks like this. There are 5 final letters, and because they're final letters, they can either take the value of the normal letter. For example, there's the letter nun, and its final letter is the final nun. So in nun, mem is 13, num is 14. So the final letters can take the same values, 13 and 14, the placement value. Or they can take, if you put them at the end of the alphabet, you will get the last letter is taf, then the first of the final letters is chaf, that becomes 23. Final mem is 24. So this number, this letter can be either 13 or 24. And 24 is connected to the square here. So we'll see some other ways in which the final mem is connected to a square. So the next question I had was that what is the importance of these two numbers, 24 and 9? If I was to draw a square and I was to make this 24 and I put a little square in the middle and make that 9, so I'm already getting to sort of like a frame, which is like what the mem is. So this is like the mem, but I thought that's a very small compared to that. Maybe we'll have to double this. Maybe we'll have to take this mem and give it a thinner border, a thinner frame, and that to do that I put 9 by 9, 9 by 9. So I put 2 squares alongside. That's 9 and 9. That's 18. That'll make that 3. That'll make that 3. So we have a border of 3, looking a bit more like the letter mem rather than a big thick one. Now let's go into that a little bit more detail in a minute. The final mem is written in the Hebrew Torah scroll as basically like a resh and a resh. 2-letter resh, reshim. This would be a resh and this would be a resh, and the letter resh is the 20th letter of the alphabet, so that's 20, and that resh would be 20, and course 20 and 20 is 40. If I add them, I get 40. And the mem, the normal value of the mem, is 40, which will be the same as the final value as well, because it can take that as well. So that's already an indication, a connection between the alliteration and the mem. If you multiply those together, you get 20 times 20 equals 400. So, in other words, the number 400, we can get that also if you use the actual normal value of the ratio, because the normal value of the ratio is 200, and the normal value of this ratio is 200, and you add them together, you get 400 again. So either way, whether I multiply the placement value or I add the normal value, I get to 400. What is the significance of 400? I'm going to come back to this again, so we'll see. If I write out 24 times 24, and I'm going to work out the the value of that if I was to write it into words. In other words, the words 24, let's just write it in small, 24 equals 167. Happens to be obviously the large value of the letter mem. Okay, so 24 times, the word times is 66, 24. So I've got 24 times 24 as the phrase 24 times 24, and I'm adding it all together. I'll get 400. So I have another connection here between this value, the square, and the final mem, which is 400. So if I now, okay, come back to that in a minute. Let's go to the Hebrew now. The Hebrew word for square is revua. So we're going to write it as haruvua, the square. Sometimes you have to put the inside. I think I explained in an early one, for example, hamelech, which means the king. I'm write in block. Hamelech. Hamelech is the king, is 41, which equals king in English. So you get not the king, but just the king, and equals hamelech. I find this a few times where it's either the something in English equals the thing in Hebrew, or the thing in Hebrew equals the thing in English. So it's always one or the other, but rarely both together. So haruvua, so I've written this in script, the Hebrew script letters. I've been trying to stick to block, because most people know that from what they read in the prayer books, the Jewish. So we've got a hey, resh, beit, vav, ayin. If I work out the placement values, I'm going to change my pen again. 5/20th, so that's 2, 6 and 16th letter. I will get 16, 22, 24, 29, 39, 49. So I get a square again, because 49 is 7 times 7, 7 squared. Okay. Let's now do something similar to what I did with the circle. If you remember, I took the circle and I wrote it in a circle. I drew a circle and I wrote the word circle around it, and I showed some interesting relationships with that, because it was 6 letters and it corresponds to the 6, the Star of David. So we're going to write this in a square. Of course, I don't have 4 letters. So we put the S by himself, and we put the QU together, because they go together. And we're going to stick the AR together, because they are a natural part. Not all words. E is obviously is a singular letter which occurs at the end of the letter, end of the word, that often changes the sound of the vowel inside it. So, for example, you've got hop and you've got hope, so you put an E at the end. So we're keeping the E as a separate letter. And I will now write down the placement values of each of these. Q and U, Q is 17 and U is 21, so it gives me 38. A and R is 1 and 18, which is 19, similar to S. And the E is 5. I'll try another colour. Unfortunately, my colours are getting fainter and fainter. So now we're going to take the, well, just one thing before I do the next stage. I'm just going to add these together to give me the small value. 8 and 3 is 11. 1 and 9 is 10. That's 5. Okay. And that is 10. And if I add those numbers, I get 10, 11, 10 and 5. I get 36, which is 6 squared. Okay. We're getting a few squares here. So that's not what I found as interesting as the following. If I take the word 19, we're going to work out the values of each of these numbers. So 19 is 86, which is the large value of S, 86. 38 is 149. 19, the word 19 is 86. And 5 equals 42. So I'm using the words 19, 38, 19 and 5. I'm using the placement values to give these bigger values, larger values. So I now add those together and I get 86, 149. This is what we did with the circle. This is exactly the same thing I was doing with the circle. I have 6 and 6 is 12, 21, 23, 12, 20, 26, and 3. 2 minus 3. So I got 363. In my book on gematria, on sacred geometry, on this sort of thing, I'll be showing how these numbers, some of them are very relevant to a messianic sort of tilt or message, would be the best one. And this is there are things hidden in these things, like which are secret messages as to who the Messiah is and what the Messiah is. So that I'm not going to delve into today. So we've got this number 363. The letter mem, which is connected to the Messiah, which I'm not going to go into. But the final mem, or just the mem, if I write it out in English, it's spelled M-E-M, mem. Now if I square the placement values and add them, what we call the sum of the square, SOS, sum of the square, I get 13 squared, 5 squared, and 13 squared, because m is 13, e is 5. If I square those, I get 169, 25, 169. Add those together, I got 18, 23, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 1, 2, 3. I get 363, being over there. So I've connected this square using the same thing I was doing with the circle with the mem. Doesn't matter if it's the final mem or the normal mem, but because there was the word mem in English. Now I've got another way of doing that. So if you can follow this, you're doing very well. I'm now going to go back to that well, first of all, I've got to do one more step. I've got to look at we're going to examine the magic square of 9. Remember, square equals 81, and 81 is 9 squared. So we're going to look at the square of 9. I'm going to rub all this off now. And I'm going to try and draw, oh, I left a ruler here, I moved it. I'm going to draw a square of 9. I'll do this by hand. So I'm going to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll go across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, this should be 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then I do the same this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And draw these lines down. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I've got a 9 by 9. If you know anything about writing magic squares, you know that doing magic squares of odd numbers, odd number rows, is a lot easier than doing for even. So we're going to look at this one first. So how do you do a magic square? I've seen various ways of doing this, but these ways, you take the middle one and you go to the right. You can go to the, it doesn't matter, the adjacent horizontal, the vertical ones, but I like going up here. 1, and you go up diagonally along the line. You get to here, there's nothing there, so you have to go over to here. It's like if you take these edges and you roll it round as a cylinder, you keep going up. And the same thing, when you can't go there, that's where 6 should go, you roll it this way so that it joins a cylinder that way. So that will come down here now. 7, 8, 9. And when you can't go any more, you go 2 to the right. So, whoops, that should be 10. 2 to the right. 10. 10, 11, 12, 13 is over here. 14, 15, 16 wound it around, goes down to here. 17, 18, 2 to the right. 19, 20, up here, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, over there. 26, 27, 2 to the right. 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, over to here, brings you to here, 37, no, yes, 37, 38, 39, 40, and 41. Now I know I'm home because 41 is the middle number. If you take the 81 squares and you add 1 and you divide it by 2, that's how you find the middle number. So we keep going up. 42, 43, 44, 45, and now that should go there, but it can't, so it goes 2 to the right, which is over here. 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, over to here. 54, 2 to the right. 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, oops, 9, over to there is 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80 and 81. Now, if you were to add up around this centre one, let me just highlight this a bit more. If you add the ones around it, so you'll get 82. So 81 and 1 is 82, 32 and 50 is 82, 73 and 9 is 82, 40 and 42 is 82, and you can go along. 51 and 81 is 2, 82, 50, 71 and 11 is 82, 21 and 61 is 82, then you go this way. 70 and 12 is 82, and all the way down this around there's 82, all the way, go around that way, and it forms this amazing pattern, really, because this is all about warping of space. This is how these connect this way, it connects this way. So the thing about this is that all the rows and all the columns and all the diagonal, all the two main diagonals add up to the same number, which in this case is, I'll just use this one, 369. Now that number will ring a bell with some of you, because I'm sure you've seen either its recordings or videos on this number or frequencies, and people don't seem to understand that this number is actually connected to God. Yes, it's connected to God. So let's show you how it's connected to God. And I said that this is all connected to Mashiach and everything. And I'm not going to go in great details, but this I show because if you take the God in Hebrew, the name of God that's used in creation, Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim v'et haaretz, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. that very first verse, and the name of God that's used throughout the creation account is Elohim. I don't pronounce it exactly as it's supposed to be pronounced because I don't like to pronounce God's name. But that is spelt, God's name is spelt Aleph. I'm just going to make a space here, a hyphen, because I don't want to write God's name on the board. Lamed, Hey, Yud, Mem. That's Elohim. That's the Hey. When I say K. So Elohim has various gematrias, and because it's got a final mem, it takes on another set of gematrias. So the normal placement, not the normal, but the placement value is 13, 10, 5, 12, and 1, which is 41, which is the number in the middle. And the normal value is 86. That's the normal value. But the value that gives you 369 is actually the alternative large value. Now, since mem can be 24, okay, mem can be 24. If I now add up those, so if I now work up the large values, so 1 equals 34, 12 is 87, 5 is 42, 10 is 39, and 24 is 167. I hope I've got this right. Almost certain, yes. 4 and 7 is 11, 12, 13, 22, 29. Carry 2. I've got 3 and 8 is 11, 15, 67, 18, plus 6, 18 to 24, 25, 26. And then I've got 26 carry 2, and I've got 1 and 2, which is 369, which is that number up there. In other words, this is giving us the normal value, the alternative large value, ALV I write it, the alternative large value, because I've used the alternative placement value for mem, of 369. So we see that God is connected to this square, 8 by 8, 9 by 9, in two ways so far. So now, the next thing I thought about was to examine what I showed you before about this thing here being twice, in fact you get 4 of them. So I'm going to rub this off because I'm sure you copied this all down and written it down. Very easy to make, I think. So here it is. Now going back to my other frame, we had a frame which was like this. And now each one of these squares here are 9 by 9. Okay? And this is 24. This is our square equaling 81 squared, 81 equaling 9 squared, and 576 equaling 24 squared. So I have these two squares, but I'm going to make 4 of these. So, and that meant we said that this would be 3 and this would be 3. And the total distance across that will be 18. So my total area will be 18 times 18, which is 324. Leave that rest for a moment. This distance 3, we can put 1, 2, we could put all together, this is 9, so I can put 3 there and another 3 there, and another one at the end. Now if I do that all the way around, I'm going to get these squares, 3 by 3, 3 squares, times 28. I'll fit 28 of these all the way around the edge. They're all going to be 3 by 3, and this is 9 by 9. Okay? So I'm going to get 28 of these 3 by 3 squares. And then if I were to work that what that was out as a gematria, so I've got 3 squared. This is get a bit complicated. 3 squared times, just gets even more complicated when you can't write, times 28. So I'm going to work that out as a placement value, and I'm going to get, and I have to find it, 28 times, no, that 28, I wrote it down somewhere, no, it's over here, sure of it, 28 times 3 squared, I've seen lots of other things I've got to mention. It's quite strange. Here it is, right at the bottom of the paper, I've got the finger on it. Right, 28 times 3 squared. If I was to work that out, this phrase, I would get 363. Remember, that was the number we had before for mem, and which is also the number that we had for the square, putting the square around in a square. So this number's cropped up again, 3 squared, and that represents this around here, the frame, the mem. Okay, that is the dark part. This is the light part, and this is the dark part. And I'll show you what this means here, the light part, because we said that if we add up the rows, we get 369. But since we put 2 by side, and same going this way, so we've got 369 and 369, which if I add that together, 12, 13, I get 738. And if you take the word light, I can do this in 2 ways. I can take the sum of squares, so L is 12, and 12 squared is 144, I is 9, 9 is 81, G is 7, 7 times 7 is 49. If I do that, I'll get 738. I can also get that, so that's what I call the sum of squares, SOS. I can also get exactly the same value if I was to work out the large value of light, which is 350, and add it to the normal inner value, the NIV value, which is 388. So that's the large value, and that's the normal inner value. They're the outer values, remember, because the placement value and the normal value are the inner values, and they extend to form their own extended value using the placement values of them. So n is 50, so 50 becomes 66, but n is 14, and 40 becomes 104. So each way they extend out, and if I add that together, I get 738. So in 2 ways, I get this number 738 connected with light. I find that the square value of light is quite interesting because light itself is obviously a 3-dimensional pulsation through the sky, whichever medium it's in, and it's where you have magnetic and electrical fields at right angles to each other, and so this idea of square values, the 3D effect sort of thing, comes in. It's actually a planar. So we're looking now at this bit here, this section, as representing light, because it's white. It's the part, the inner side of the mem, which is light, and the outer side, which is dark, and that's connected to this. So a few other little bits I shall add on now, just to show you how the square is connected to the mem again more. So this will finish off. We are talking about the final mem. The final mem, written out like that, final mem. If I was to work out the placement value, PV is 73, and it has a normal inner value of 504, normal inner value. Add those together, get 577. We had before that we've had the mem, the word mem, so a square, 577, so a square. We had the word square was 576 in the normal value, and of course that's 1 in the normal value. That gives me 577. Another connection to the final mem is a square, using the normal value. another example. If I take the word mem and I work out its placement value, 31, its normal value, which is 85, which is actually the English for squared. If I now work out the large value, which is 240, it's a large value, and the inner normal value, which is 210, that's NI, or normal inner value, and I add those together, I get 566. And if I take the word square, oh, here we have a use, I forgot about this one. The placement value is 81. The large value is 485. That's the large value. We haven't used that yet. That's 665. So I've got another connection between mem and square. I've got lots of connections, which is quite fascinating because this is what the mem is. Alright, one more, I think. The number in the middle of that square was 41. That was the central number, 41. And the word 41, if I work out its large value, is 657. Yeah, 657 is the large value of 41. Now if you take 576, which was 24 times 24, and you add 81, 9 times 9, that was square, the normal value of square and the placement value of square, I get 657 connected to, I've added together, I call that total value, connected to 41. 41 is king, 41 was Elohim, okay, if I take king and find out the normal value of king, well, that's 50, 7, 9 and 20, I get 86, which was the placement value of Elohim. Connection of God being king of the universe. And I think that's going to be it. There are other various things. Interestingly, we have a phrase, back to square one, right? Where you go back to square one, it came from snakes and ladders. You go up, get to the snake, in symbols you find the snake goes all the way back down to square one. So back to square one, beginning, go back to the beginning equals 81, which equals square. The end is connected to the beginning, when inserted in the beginning. So all sorts of things one can do on this and extend this, but I won't go on to any more of these now. Oh dear, there's loads. There's other things. There's a few more connections to mem and the square. So yes, I find this quite fascinating. In context with everything else I do, it sort of brings this whole thing to a complex, what I've heard people call it the gematria matrix. That's possibly the best word for it. And I hope you enjoy this lecture. There's a few more coming up. I'm going to be doing one. I think the next one is going to be, I was going to do it quite way back, but it's going to be on Elisha and the two bears, the two she bears, very enigmatic story in the Book of Kings. So I'm just going to touch on a little bit of a biblical criticism on this text, or explanation, expounding on that text. It's 3 verses. A book I've written so far is about 84 pages, so there's a lot to say in those three verses. And what you'll find on the internet about what it's all about is pretty empty, to say the least, because why would Elisha bring out 2 bears and kill 42 kids just for making fun of him? So there's a bit more depth to it than what is there on the surface. Have a good week, and we'll speak to you again soon. Bye bye.